Hello there. The warnings of impending war are coming thick and fast right now. But why has it taken this long for people to start voicing real concerns? And there you have it. The assessment is that Vladimir Putin's Russia will attack NATO in 5 to 8 years' time. Well, according to the German Defence Minister Boris Pistorius anyway. Talking to Der Tagesspiegel, he said that the US, the UK and the EU hear threats from the Kremlin almost every day, so we have to take into account that Vladimir Putin might even attack a NATO country one day. We have to learn to live with danger again and prepare ourselves, militarily, socially and in terms of civil defence. And remember the Swedish Civil Defence Minister Carl Oskar Bolin a few days ago calling for his country to brace for war? And the chief of NATO's military committee, Dutch Admiral Rob Bauer, saying we need a war-fighting transformation in NATO. While the Estonian Prime Minister Kaja Kallas believes the time frame for a Russian confrontation could be as little as 3 to 5 years away. And all that talk of conscription that abounds. Now, I would say we've been hearing about threats made by Russia against Western Europe for at least a decade. But it's only very recently that this has been ramped right up to extraordinary levels. Sounds more like an instant return of the Cold War. And just to point out that this is about Russia. No one's talking here about China, North Korea and Iran, just Russia. But most of that new Russian threat information seems to be coming from NATO chiefs and EU and UK ministers. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to see the UK beef up its armed forces considerably. But what I worry about here is the possibility, or more likely probability, that the Eurocrats have spotted an opportunity to use fear-mongering about Putin and Russia to nudge the people of Europe into quickly accepting a centrally controlled EU army. Something that our UK establishment is chomping at the bit to join, despite Brexit. In fact, I think Brexit has made the Westminster ambitions of joining the EU armed forces structure all the stronger because it represents the fastest way back into the fold for them. So there are a couple of anomalies that make me question all this suddenly newfound Russia-phobia. Number one is that for Russia to attack a NATO country, Putin and his military officials would want to be 100%, or as near as damn it, certain that NATO would never be put in a position to deploy its nuclear arsenal. But because no one can ever be sure of anything in war, then how could he ever be sure about that? Unless he has a method of neutering our nukes, or someone on our side has assured him of a zero nuclear response as long as he geographically behaves himself, i.e. he restricts himself to only taking on certain NATO countries. A very difficult thing to believe, but not impossible. Anomaly number 2 is that we have just been told by the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at the WEF conference in Davos that Russia is not winning in Ukraine and it is suffering economically. And there have been stories fed to us about Russia scraping the bottom of the armaments barrel. If that's the case now, how will Putin be in a position to attack us in 5 years' time? So what are these people saying? That nuclear deterrence doesn't work? Or at least doesn't work against Russia? Because it's as sure as hell working in Russia's favour at the moment, because no one dare send troops into Ukraine to help them defeat Putin because of the threat from the Russian nuclear arsenal. So surely nuclear deterrence does work. And are they admitting that all those much vaunted sanctions aren't stopping Putin from getting the money and arms he needs to take on the West? Now, I'm only asking questions like this because our politicians have proven themselves to be very manipulative and evasive in the past. Think face coverings, stay-at-home orders and arm intervention mandates. And Germany definitely was not talking like this 5 years ago while they busily sucked up Russian oil and gas. Now, one way of temporarily boosting an economy is to get involved in an arms race, where those countries with huge industrial capacity stand to make a lot of dosh, from the taxes of other countries, of course. So what's the truth? Is Putin being ground down, or is the Russian bear waking up? We seem to have flip-flopped at an electric pace from one position to the other. But to take on the "we were beating him with all our bright shiny new kit, but now he's suddenly a massive threat to us, Vladimir Putin, in just a few years would, if true, take massive coordination. And I get the feeling that we in Europe will be told that the US has gone cold on NATO and will be busy elsewhere with China, Iran and North Korea, giving our politicians and officials the chance to quickly merge Europe's armed forces so as to prepare to fend off Russia. You get the idea. And once they are merged, they will stay merged, taking the merging of the nations with them. But they're also talking about business having to be ready to participate. And we in the UK need to be very mindful of this and only cooperate, not enlist. We in the UK do need to rearm, but for our own ends, and not just to protect the European Union and through its military procurement processes fill the boots of Germany, France, Italy and Spain with British gold. And now let's talk about that fishy amnesiac from north of the border. Richard.
Right, peasants. You remember that little dictator from Scotland? You know, the one with a panache for motorhomes and policies that nobody in Scotland could ever possibly want or relate to. Well, what's her name? Ah, yes, Nicola £600,000, the Sturgeon. Yes, the woman who placed Scotland under such a tight and stringent lockdown that you couldn't fart in a public place without getting arrested. Well, guess what, dear viewers? All of her WhatsApp messages appertaining to the pandemic have disappeared. Gone. Just like that. Just like Boris Johnson's did. The COVID inquiry taking place in Edinburgh was told, and I quote the Telegraph here, the former minister had retained no messages whatsoever over the pandemic. OK. And also according to the Telegraph, a spokesman for Ms. Sturgeon said on Thursday, in the interests of everyone who has been impacted by the COVID pandemic, Nicola is committed to full transparency to both the UK and Scottish COVID inquiries. Any messages she had, she handled and dealt with in line with the Scottish Government's policies. Nicola has provided a number of written statements to the UK inquiry totalling hundreds of pages and welcomes the opportunity to give oral evidence to the inquiry again this month. You can't beat oral evidence, can you? When she will, that by the way isn't a quote from the Telegraph, when she will answer all the questions put to her. End of quote. Well, I believe her anyway. Why wouldn't you? I mean, she is an honest and decent woman. Well, I think she identifies as a woman. I hope so. Oh, my goodness. I hope I haven't misgendered her. Oh, no. If I have, I apologise profoundly. I mean, she does have short hair, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, what is it that she could have to hide? And she has said she is being totally transparent, just like Boris Johnson was being transparent. And we all must, we must trust her, just like we trust Boris Johnson. And once again, according to ye old Telegraph, Jamie Dawson, KC, counsel to the inquiry, spoke of the messages being deleted in routine tidying up of her inboxes, so, or changes to mobile phones, so unable to retrieve messages. Yes, she was unable to do it. Again, very plausible. So nothing to see here. Move along. I mean, Nicola the Sturgeon was only doing what anyone who'd be holding vital information in the public interests, you're going to delete it, aren't you? Of course you are. Yes. Anyway, what do you lot of Jimmies and Crankies think about what has been said in today's video? Leave your insightful insights in the comment section below for Mr. Taylor and I to read. And get yourselves over, come on, get yourselves over to our Locals channel for extra content. Links in the descriptions box below, and God bless you all, and bye for now.